Apple Knocker Radio.
All right, greetings, friends. Sometime back, I talked about starting the series where I talked about the vulnerabilities in our own minds, our own psychology. And, everybody talks about cybersecurity. I started thinking, why not brain security, right? Said I was going to do it a while ago, and I didn't do it because I kept thinking, I was trying to think of, some kind of cool production or something to do. And before I start this, I want to say to everybody who subscribes to this channel, guys, I am working on increasing the value of the production on this. I've got money invested and time put aside, and I kind of feel bad that it's still just me in my living room. But I'm taking measures. It's taking a little time. I got a lot going on besides this channel, and I appreciate the people that have subscribed and stuck around. And speaking of subscribing and sticking around, a funny thing about having a channel as eclectic as mine is that they have so many videos where a bunch of people follow and then people just unfollow over time, and it's kind of funny because I'll talk about literature one moment and then talk about some bizarre occult book or something the other. And to those people that stick around, I really appreciate it, and I want to deliver a good product for you guys, and so I'm working on it. But in the meantime, I wanted to get started on this because as I've learned, and as Gurdjieff teaches, or as Gurdjieff taught, anytime you want to do something, you got to take action on it, or else it just automatically, just by nature, dies and will eventually dissipate and disappear. That's been my experience in life. And that's to my understanding of Gurdjieff's teaching of the octaves. But anyway, I'm getting off on another subject. See, the eclectic nature of the channel. So here's the deal. A lot of people talk about mind control and stuff like that, and you get into all these really crazy, spooky things. But if you really research it, there are some really spooky things that people can do and that people pull off. But for the most part, it's pretty simple techniques that have been used for a long time. I mean, you could read Brené's books, like Crystallizing Public Opinion, and I think Propaganda was the title of another one. And a lot of the stuff's basically the same. The people using this stuff have just gotten better at making it a little more subtle and cloaking it a little bit. But I want to get moving on this because I think it's a cool idea, and I also think it could be useful. And so I'm going to start out reaching for the low-hanging fruit. Before going on, though, let me say that to anybody who thinks that their minds aren't vulnerable to suggestion, that's just silly, guys. We all are. And I think that's actually the first thing. I already have something in my mind that I'm going to talk about, but that would actually be the first thing that I would say to people. When you're talking about your ability to think logically, rationally, and consciously, to remain conscious, you first have to start with understanding, admitting, and owning the fact that we are all suggestible creatures that can be easily led astray. If the right stimulus comes along at the right time, we act like animals. And that's just the way it is. And, to begin with, to try to kind of safeguard your mind, you have to start with that acceptance. But anyway, so low-hanging fruit. One of the easiest techniques that they've been using forever is simply repetition. If you say something enough times, people will start to believe it. And it's interesting because even if you're conscious of it, even then, it still gets hammered into your brain. I mean, it's just I picture it those, you hear a hammer and chisel. If somebody's, stenciling in words into stone or something, they just keep clicking. And even if you got a rock solid mind, man, over time that stuff starts to leave an impression. And that's how I like to think of it, and that's how I've experienced it. But here's the thing. When you talk about, if you say something enough, people will start to believe it. Now, a lot of people already know that, right? That's kind of anybody who takes any time to look into these things about these control measures that have been created to herd people along. It's one of the first things you encounter, right? But here's the deal. when you realize that, you like political slogans, it's the easiest way to see it. Every time any political campaign starts, and this is all political campaigns, right? Like I make a really great effort to not be at all partisan on this channel, and to avoid politics in general in any kind of, you know what I mean. Like I've said before, I want this channel to be kind of like an oasis from that, because everyone's politically obsessed right now, and I want this channel to be an oasis for that, for myself and for you. And but still, so you can see it. Like all political slogans or all political campaigns, they come out, they figure out their slogan to kind of conceptualize the impression that they want to put out, and then they'll just keep pumping it out there. They all do it, and it's actually kind of amusing, because sometimes you can watch people from one side or the other will be like, oh, look at those idiots, they're all in a cult. Not even like aware that the same freaking thing is that their person is doing the same freaking thing to them. It's kind of funny. But here's the thing, like when you see that, it becomes obvious, right? You can see it in something like political slogans, like, yeah, their marketing people have come up with this as their slogan, and they're just going to keep repeating it ad nauseum, and until it becomes ingrained in people's minds, and they create these associations with it. But here's the thing, when it becomes trickier, right? Because even when you realize that, you can see that. The next level is when you start seeing certain things that come out from perhaps various media outlets that are not supposed to be connected, and yet they're all saying the same exact thing, like the same exact phrase over and over and over again, right? Almost as if they're not actually disconnected, almost as if they are all being given the same script by the same puppeteers, right? That becomes a little harder to see because it's tricky. You know, you see it in a magazine cover there, you hear it in a clip in a show or something there, and you're not consciously aware, because it's not all accreted around one political campaign or one political figure. That's a little bit trickier. But when it becomes the trickiest, right, is when it's not broken down into a single it's not a it's not a set of words that can be linked from one place to the other, but it's more of an idea. But the idea is being pumped at you from various places at the same exact time, and in a way that is having the same effect, maybe a more subtle effect, right? Which may mean that it takes a little bit longer to knock into somebody's noggin, but in a way the subtlety is the strength, because it's harder to detect. You don't really know what's happening, right? You just know you've been getting these impressions over and over and over again for a certain amount of time. The next thing you know, you start thinking, maybe your thoughts start thinking a different way, right? And that's why it's so important to always be on guard and to realize your own suggestibility, and to be honest with yourself about it, and to be constantly questioning your own assumptions and your own thoughts. And this happens to me all the time, man. Like I spend more time reading and thinking about this stuff than any sane person should. And still sometimes I'll find myself, I'll start going somewhere, and I will stop myself and say, but wait a minute, what's my actual evidence for that? What's my actual proof for that? And then when I'll trace it back, usually I can't even really find where it started from, but a lot of times, I'll find that something set me down a rabbit hole, and one breadcrumb led to another, but there was no real meat. There was no real connective tissue between any of those things. And back at the original breadcrumb, it was nothing but somebody's suggestion. And so it's as simple as that, man. And you can use this for your benefit too. And people talk smack about things like affirmations all the time. I think that's nonsense. I'm totally all for affirmations. Keep hammering positive things in your mind. No, it's not going to instantly work magic and change your life. But if you do it over time, then yes, it can have an effect. If you keep putting positive stuff in your mind, it has the same effect. The same freaking thing happens. And that's kind of my problem with a lot of people who research these things, and they come out with these doom and gloom kind of perspectives. It's like, well, all it is a technology, and you could use it for positive means. And if you keep pumping yourself full of positive stimulus, then that is going to cumulatively have an effect. And if it's combined with other things, well, the next thing you know, you can change your life. And it can be one important component in changing your life. I mean, it's just like if you grow up and your whole life you have parents that are telling you you're an idiot and you're a loser. Later on in life, you'll hear those voices pop up in your head now and then, idiot, loser. Conversely, if you have parents that say you're beautiful and you're special, that pops up in your mind later. You're beautiful and you're special. Grab hold of this and you can do it for yourself. But in the meantime, brain security, realize that there are people doing this to you every day. This isn't anybody who tries to tell you it's some kind of like crazy conspiracy. They're not even worth talking to, man. And I always try to avoid those kind of negative things in here. But seriously, that's nonsense. There's been whole freaking books about it. There are college courses on this stuff. There are like professions based around this mode of getting people to persuading people to think in a certain way. So the people who say like, oh, that's crazy, that you're a fool if you think this is crazy conspiracy nonsense. It is not. It's a fact. So that's about it. Like I said, my friends, people following the channel who I appreciate so much, I've got things in order. Things are going to become so much better. And it's going to take a little bit of time because I'm busy. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope everybody is doing great. I hope everybody has a great weekend. And I hope everybody remains fixed on your goals and your personal growth. And on the light. Keep your eyes on the light, everybody. All right. Peace out.